Guys, welcome back to the channel. So I have a couple of clients that I'm working with, and we're going to explore the different options in which to pay off this debt. So it's about $250,000 worth of debt. We're going to look at all of the different ways of paying this and see which of these ways will be the fastest to pay this debt off.
Let's create a budget. Let's get out of debt. Let's build wealth.
Okay guys, so for the video purposes and for privacy purposes, the names of the individuals will be changed, and a lot of the descriptions has been changed to just generic descriptions. But as far as all the expenses and everything, it all stayed the same. So we're going to call them Todd and Mandy. Okay, so Todd and Mandy filled out the sheet, and when filling out the sheet, I wanted to go through this part just so people can, have a better understanding. And sometimes, it is confusing trying to fill all of this out. So they have a budget total of $3,640. Listed on this budget was groceries, restaurant, entertainment, gas for the cars, their tithes, offerings, Netflix, some miscellaneous, and a health savings. Then we have, for automobiles, they have one car. This car, we have 0% interest rate on this car. They're buying it from friends, and they owe $10,600. It's a $400 payment. There's no interest or anything until the $10,600 is paid off. Now their mortgage is $203,950. They were able to convert the entire mortgage over into a HELOC, a 2.95% HELOC for the entire balance of this mortgage. Then we have a line of credit. So they have a personal line of credit. It's a $50,000 limit. They have a balance of $40,000, and they're currently paying $500 a month. And then they have two credit cards. I didn't write down the limits here, but they don't owe anything on the cards, so I just put $5,000 here. And the infinite banking concept, they do want to start it. It haven't started yet. That's an option that we are going to explore as soon as we can get all the information and see how we can incorporate it into here. So next we'll have utilities. And again, these have been changed to just a generic description. But we have a total of $1,031 in utilities. And miscellaneous expenses, we have a total of $1,435. Tolls, those will come out automatically, once the balance gets low. So it's not technically $35 every month, especially right now because they're working from home, but we put that in there anyway. And then timeshare fees of $1,400. So the income is $7,779 a month. The $523 is miscellaneous. It's a dividend payment. So as it stands, it shows $254,950 in debt, $8,456 in expenses, and negative $676.19 in cash flow. So the first thing I did with Todd and Manny, we went over this sheet. So looking at starting with budget, they have the tithes and offering. We moved this over to miscellaneous expense. So when it comes to budget, you want to separate. Budget is only, groceries, restaurant, entertainment, gas. It's miscellaneous expenses. It's not really necessarily an everyday monthly expense that is kind of a set amount, right? So when you're doing your budget, think of this as, daily expenses like gas for the car. If you're going to Starbucks, that can be like a work lunches, any miscellaneous, just stopping at the store, grabbing sodas, groceries. If you don't itemize groceries out, just put it in your budget. in the restaurants. So we're going to take tithes, offering, and offerings and move it over to miscellaneous expenses. The Netflix, these miscellaneous expenses are they're mass, or they're just to have the generic description, but these are miscellaneous expenses. They're not part of the budget. The health savings is something that comes out of the bank account automatically every month. And this miscellaneous also comes out of the bank account every month. They're not really part of the budget. So all of these we are also going to move over to miscellaneous expenses. So we got that all moved over. So for the budget now, we have groceries, entertainment, and gas for the car. So it comes out to $2,240 a month. And for the miscellaneous expenses, with these all being moved over now and added to this total, we have $2,835 a month. So we can see nothing's changed there. We still have total income, total expenses, and total cash flow. Okay, now that the budget is done, we moved over here to utilities. So on the utilities, we have the insurance. These are all just everyday utility bills. And then the insurance and property tax, we're going to move this down to miscellaneous also. It's not that important, but technically it's not really utilities. So we move this down. That'll bring our total to $3,271. And we'll just take this out. Brings it to $594. So that still gives us the same amount. We just move some things around. Okay, so next we have the car payment, $400, and then on the HELOC. So on the HELOC, Mandy was paying $1,000. She's paying $500 every 2 weeks. The interest they got confused on is actually part of that. So we could take this out. So they have $1,000 going to the HELOC, and line of credit they're paying $500 on. Okay, and when reviewing this, the timeshare, this is an annual fee that's due every December. So if we basically take this amount and divide it by 12, this will be about $117. So that with that adjusted, their cash flow is now $1,056 a month. So now that we had all of the bills kind of in the right spot and went over cash flow, we started with budget. So we had a conversation on budget, and I was suggesting they open a second checking account to transfer the budget amount over every month and then to use it. Well, Todd and Mandy were, they're pretty sharp and they're thinking about this, and we're collaborating, and that's why it's always better to have 1, 2, 3, 4 minds working on this together, because you can come up with better solutions. So Mandy suggested they do have one of these credit cards, and we'll just use this credit card too. They're going to use their budget on this card. So the thing is, they don't know if it's always $1,200 a month for groceries, $400 for a restaurant, $200 for entertainment. So if we're keeping that second checking account at $2,240, that's possible cash that could be sitting in the line of credit and less that we're paying interest on. So by utilizing the credit card, it'll be that exact amount. So originally I suggested, hey, if you don't use $1,200 in groceries, let's just say you use $2,000 for that month. In order to maximize this, what you could do is you could just transfer, instead of transferring the whole $2,240 the next time you got paid into the budget account, you could just transfer $2,000 and that will bring it back. But by utilizing a credit card, this entire cash is actually being transferred to the line of credit at that time. So if we look let me add the required checking account amount here. So their required checking account amount, I always recommend a 1 month's worth of expenses would be $6,723. Now understand that everybody's different, and depending on your level of discipline and how you want to do this, it's always safe to have that. But since we're going to be using a credit card for this, we can now reduce. So not only are we going to, you're still needed to have $6,723 because that's still going to be the bills that you have to pay. But since they have a line of credit, we're going to keep this amount in the line of credit until it's needed to actually pay the credit card. So whereas you would have this money coming out of your checking account, that second checking account is sitting in there and it's coming out randomly throughout the month. Now, by utilizing a credit card, we're going to let this $22.40 sit in the line of credit. So the required checking account amount will be subtracted by this amount because we can just transfer it back from the line of credit a day or two before it's due. So this new checking account amount will now be $4,483. Again, if we had a second checking account where we were transferring the budget amount to every month, they would have put all cards away, including the credit card, and they would have been using that second debit card to pay for these expenses every month. And we would keep it at a certain amount to make sure that it's covered and that this cash flow remains true by not overspending on budget. But by utilizing a credit card, they are able to, if they don't spend this amount, it's automatically already sitting in the line of credit anyway, and they're saving and making this even faster. So again, for the budget, it'll basically be coming out of this second checking or credit card, and we're going to pay that off every month. Next, we went to the car. There's not much we can do here. It's 0% interest. There's no need to pay it off any faster. We would gain $400 in cash flow, and we will see that as we go through this, whether or not it would make sense to do that. So we have the HELOC that she's sending $500 every 2 weeks to, so $1,000 a month, regardless of what was the due. Because on HELOCs, the only thing that the minimum payment that's due is interest only. That's the only thing that's due on it. And she was sending 6 to the line of credit, $500. So we decided, and before we do that, looking over here at utilities. So what we decided to do was the same thing, right? This total amount required in the checking account is covering all of the rest of the bills. So we decided to use that. So that this credit card that we decided to use actually have points, reward points on it, in which you can use for groceries. So it's actually perfect for budget, because regardless of what the interest rate is on this card, it's still going to be 0% because we're paying it off. Plus you get that little extra, points to use for groceries, which could reduce that even lower 1 month, which will be more being sent to the line of credit. So for utilities, this is also a rewards card. So the way she was currently paying it, and I kind of pre-did this because for where they are, utilities 1 and 2 cannot be paid with credit card. It has to be paid out of the checking account. So she was basically splitting these up every 2 weeks. We're going to move all of this to 1 month. These utilities, we are now going to be paying with that second rewards credit card. And on their miscellaneous expenses, the tolls, it'll be tied to the credit card, I believe. And it will only get charged if it needs it. But we're going to add that. Timeshare fees, this is in here just for, it gets paid every December, but it's just an average out monthly because technically that total amount will come out by the end of the year. Ties, offering and building was coming out of the checking account. She is able to pay these with credit card, so this will all now be tied to the credit card. Netflix will now be tied to the credit card. The miscellaneous will all be tied to credit card. The health savings has to come out of the bank account. Miscellaneous, this also has to come out of the bank account. And then property taxes. So the property taxes, she was basically, it's due twice a year. So it's due biannually. $1,200 is due in, I think it's April and October. So she was paying $200 a month. We're now going to pay this once every 6 months. So that 2468, that $1,200 that's being taken out, this $200 will now sit in the line of credit, and it will be taken out at 6 months. So we're going to leave it to pay less interest on basically $1,200 or $200 per month, and then we're going to just take from the line of credit and pay it off when it's due. But to average it out and keep the cash flow right, we're going to put $200 a month here. So this credit card will now be used for all of the bills that can possibly be paid with credit card. So technically, again, this amount, the required checking account amount, would include the credit card. You have to include the credit card because you are paying it every month. But as we brainstormed, we're like, why don't we just leave this amount in the line of credit until it's actually due? So that would reduce this even further. And we basically came up with $1,500 a month. So the rest of that, technically that amount, this $6,000 is coming out, but we're going to maximize every single day possible by leaving it in the line of credit. And we are going to keep $1,500 in the check-in, and that'll be their 0 point. And the last thing here is on this HELOC, she's paying $500 every 2 weeks. But really the only thing needed is the minimum interest. So that minimum interest is like $468 or whatever. So we're going to pay $500 here in interest, and we're going to stop the $500 every 2 weeks. So with all of that done, it gives us a cash flow of $1,556.81. Okay guys, so I have all the information entered here. We're going to look at the different strategies, and depending on what we decide here, I'll enter it as we go along. We have $254,600 in debt, $7,779 in income, $6,223.18 in expenses, and a cash flow of $1,556.81. So let's just review how this is going to work. So their income, $7,779.99, will go into their checking account. So $1,500 will stay in the checking account at all times, and then the leftover $6,279.99 will be transferred to the line of credit. Now understand that $627.99, it could fluctuate depending on, sometimes depending on how much you owe, minimum payments, things like that. It could fluctuate a little bit, but it's maximizing every cent that's going to be sitting in the line of credit. So they would then use their Cash Rewards credit card to pay their bills with. This will give them cash points. The fact that you're paying this credit card off, these bills would have been coming from the checking account, but by putting it on the credit card, it's still zero interest, except you're gaining, a little bit of points. I mean, if you, over time, let's say you end up with $120, $130 worth of cash back, that could be a whole year's worth of a subscription to like Hulu or something like that. So we're going to take advantage of that. And on top of that, it has a double benefit in the fact that we can transfer this. There's many benefits now, where bills were coming out multiple times within the month. Now you have one due date. It simplifies it. You have one due date. The due date for electricity or utilities, all of those due dates now become one date, and that's the date that the credit card is due. So by doing that, it condenses all of that down. It maximizes the time that cash will be sitting in the line of credit until we need it. The budget now will be paid on out of the points reward card, which builds up that you can use to buy groceries with. That's going to reduce that amount. Same thing. Whereas, you know, you maybe start stopping to get in Starbucks every 2 days, you know, that's random money that's coming out, you know, every 2 days, and then it's pushing it all to one due date. Grocery shopping twice a month can now be a 1 month bill. And by doing that, by keeping that cash that would have been coming out in that account, can now all be pushed to the line of credit, maximizing that. And then you'll have your bank account where where we can't add it to cards, something like mortgages or card payments, but we can still stick that cash in the line of credit until it's needed. So when these bills in the budget becomes due on the credit card, we're going to transfer from the line of credit back into the checking account. So the $1,500, those bills will be coming out. The ones that's being paid by the bank will come out of the $1,500. When they get paid, it will replenish the $1,500 and then transfer everything else to the line of credit. When a day before the credit cards, or 2 days, depending on the time frame, once these bills are budget and the bills credit cards are due, and this could be separate times or it could be the same day, you can actually call your credit card company and change the date in which something is due. So if you change that to the end of the month, that would be the best practice. But so once that money is transferred back into the checking account, we would then transfer and pay these cards off. So we'll transfer whatever amount is needed to pay both of these cards off. If the bills credit card is due one day, we'll just transfer that amount, still maximizing the value of the line of credit, keeping it low, pay that one. And if the budget is due a few days later, we'll just make another transfer a couple of days later to maximize keeping that line of credit as low as possible to pay the least amount of interest, and then transfer that to the budget. So guys, I hope you found value in this video. If you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. It helps the channel to grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. In the next few parts, we will explore the different possibilities and ways of paying this off to see which one is faster. Thank you again. I'll see you in the next video.